Good morning guys and welcome back to my channel. The illness that I said was making its way through the kids last week has now caught up with me. So I am ill. The boys are still getting over the cold. Avery has been very ill, but I will talk more about that later in this video. So we're all just really trying to battle through the days at the moment. Today is actually Halloween. I would say happy Halloween, but by the time you see this video it will no longer be Halloween. So I hope you all had a good Halloween. Let me know what you did. Did you go trick-or-treating? Did you have a party? Did you have a movie night? That is actually what we did the last couple of years. Instead of going trick-or-treating because of the big bad sea, we decided to stay in and have a family movie night with a child-friendly Halloween film. I think last year it was Hocus Pocus, and I made a load of Halloween themed snacks which the boys absolutely loved. I don't think they missed trick-or-treating at all, but this year I promised them we would go trick-or-treating because it's been a while. It is forecast to rain tonight, so wish me luck. So today we are just at home feeling sorry. I say we, I mean me and Avery. The boys are at school. They're coming to the end of their colds now. They're just a bit snotty. Me and Avery are at home feeling sorry for ourselves because we're both poorly. Avery more than me. Avery is just having a little bit of time on the floor at the moment because this is where she loves to be the most, and for the time being we are actually on a continuous diluted apple juice feed, a very slow rate. This is my amazing oh, for the life of me I can't remember the word. I've had a complete brain fart. Improvisation, that is what I was trying to say, because we don't actually have bottles for the pump set yet, but luckily our normal bottles fit in the giving set. So that's our setup at the moment. So Avery needs to be sat up for most of the day to be having that. Again, I'm going to go into a bit more detail as to what has been going on in just a little bit, but she likes to be on the floor. This is where she's happiest, it's where she's most comfortable, so I'm just giving her a little bit of time on the floor. She's looking a bit peaky, a bit tired, so I think I might try and get her down for a little sleep in a minute, and then she will be back on the apple juice, which means she can't then lay flat, which is a shame because it's where you like to be, isn't it? You like to be on the floor. Yeah? Yeah. Also, I mentioned last week that I was getting a sideboard for the living room to try and make it look a bit less cluttered, and I finally got it sorted. Here it is in all its glory, and I've just styled it up a little bit. I did film the day I built this, so I will insert that footage now. This is the sideboard unit that I went for. It's from Laura James, which is actually a company I've never shopped before. So I'm intrigued to see what it looks like. I chose it because it's got a bit of a textured kind of design on the front, which I really liked. I just thought it might add a little bit of detail. Sorry you can hear the sniffling and snorting in the background. This one is all spluttery. You're spreading your lurgy, aren't you?
I got a cold.
You got a cold. I consider myself a little bit of a pro at flat pack furniture, considering how much IKEA furniture I have in this house. So I'm intrigued to see what this one is like to put together. So I think that is what we're gonna do. Hey Pudding? Do you wanna help Mummy put some furniture together? That looks like a hard no. So I've just unboxed what was in that box, and it really doesn't look like I have everything. So I've got a feeling it might come in more than one package. I'm hoping it comes in more than one package, because if not, there is definitely not enough here to build a sideboard. Right, so I had another email from the delivery company yesterday saying they've received my parcel, but this was after the first one was already delivered, so I am assuming there is another parcel to come, which is a little bit annoying because it means I now cannot build this.
So it looks like we're going to be living in clutter for a little bit longer. Hopefully it doesn't take too long to come. The second package of the sideboards arrived. Yay! Also, the rug has arrived. I am not too sure if I'm going to actually put this down just yet, because what did Avery do just before we left today?
There are puzzles on the floor.
No, what was Mummy cleaning off the puzzles on the floor?
Avery's throw up.
Avery's throw up. Avery is still vomiting quite a bit, so I'm going to hold off on putting the rug down just yet. I know it's washable, that's the reason I got it, in case of any throw up or any other substance on the rug. But when you wash it, it needs to dry flat, so I'm thinking the first time I'm realistically going to be able to wash it is summertime, when I can actually let it dry properly outside. So ideally I would like to keep it clean for the next 6 to 9 months, when we actually get some nice weather again. So I might just wait for this round of sickness to be done with. So I am really happy with it. I really love the design on the front. I'm not sure if you were able to see in the footage very well. It's just got this kind of textured design on it, which I just think makes it a little bit less boring and bog standard white. And then up here I've just got a few little bits and bobs, a plant, some candles, some pictures. And in the evening when the blinds are closed and that little lamp is on, it just looks so cozy here. All I need to do now is put the rug down, but I'm holding off on that for a minute because Avery is vomiting at the moment, and even though the rug is washable, I figured I'm not realistically going to be able to wash it until the summertime, because you need to dry it flat, so it would need to be outside, and at the moment with it being cold and damp I can't see it drying, so probably not the best idea to put it down while Avery is being sick. Until the summertime I'm just going to have to spot clean it, but I'm giving myself the best chance. I'm waiting for this bout of vomiting to be over. Avery has gone down for a nap, and I just wanted to sit down and just have a chat with you guys about what's been going on over the last few weeks, because I'll be honest with you guys, things aren't okay. I'm not okay at the moment, and I'm sure the way I'm feeling is being exaggerated by the fact that I'm not well, because no one really feels on top of the world when they're not well. But it all kind of goes back to when I went to Crete. So Avery was in a brilliant routine before I went to Crete, in terms of her sleep and her feeds and everything. And then when I left, my husband said that she wasn't sleeping very well, she wasn't napping very well, she was waking up in the night, which she hadn't done for a while, not for a long period of time. She might do it once or twice in a blue moon, but for the most part she slept quite well. I mean that didn't come around until well over a year old, but it was consistent for a few months where she was sleeping well. But anyway, that's not really the point.
When I got back, I thought maybe it was because she was missing me, things were a bit different and it was unsettling her a little bit, but it continued to happen when I was back. So I put it down to maybe separation anxiety. So I did my research, and turns out at around 18, 19 months old, there can be a sleep regression, which is also linked to separation anxiety. So I thought, well, that's probably what it is then. I mean, I spoke to professionals as well and asked, because of Avery's development being behind, is she likely to have sleep regressions at the same time? And they said it's possible, so that is what I put it down to. But it continued. Sleep regressions can continue for a long period of time. And then last Monday, she came down with a stinking cold, and Zach and Eli were both under the weather as well, but they had recently had their COVID jabs, so I put their symptoms down to that. But then Avery caught the cold as well, so it was obvious that there was a cold going through our household. I mentioned that in last week's video as well. And then on Monday night, she must have spiked a fever through the night, and I woke up to her SATs monitor going off because her heart rate was up at nearly 200 beats per minute, which is very high for Avery, even if she's worked up. And she was making some strange movements, and it looked as though she was having a febrile convulsion. She's had one before. The last time she had a high fever, she had a febrile convulsion, so I knew exactly what it looked like. We'd taken her to the hospital the last time she had one, and they said if she has another one and it doesn't last more than a few minutes, and you know, she comes out of it without needing any help, then you don't need to bring her in, it's fine to manage it at home. So that's what I did, because she did come out of it within a few minutes. She laid in her cot kind of just looking sleepy and dazed for a while, and then she went back to sleep. I did give her some paracetamol just to make sure her temperature was coming down, which I think is what kind of contributed to her going back to sleep as well. And then for the next few days we kind of went through the usual. When she's poorly, she vomits a lot when she's poorly. Her reflux is usually silent. She doesn't normally physically vomit unless she's poorly. And then it got to Friday, and on Friday morning I had an appointment with her nurse. I spoke to her about her symptoms, that she'd had the febrile convulsion, and at that time Avery was quite sleepy and quite lethargic, which for that time in the morning it's not really like her. And the nurse did say I would call PDOBS, which is kind of the assessment unit in our local children's ward at hospital. I would call them and just ask for their advice, especially if she gets worse. She'd fallen to sleep while the nurse was there, so when the nurse left I put her up to bed, and she slept for a good few hours. I did keep checking on her. It felt as though her fever had spiked again, and she was also breathing really strange. I decided to let her sleep because I think sleep really can do the world of wonders when it comes to being ill. But I just kept checking on her because her breathing didn't seem right. She was very hot. And then when she woke up, she was quite floppy, quite lethargic, still really, really hot. I gave her some more paracetamol and ibuprofen with her lunch, but then she threw those up. So I did then call PDOBS. I had been trying to call her usual paediatrician all day, but I just couldn't get hold of her. And PDOBS recommended that we just bring her in to get checked out. So we did. We got to the hospital at around 3 o'clock. Once again, my mum, the saint, she looked after the boys for me, and they had a whale of a time. My mums, they always do. The hospital decided to run a few tests. They did a urine sample, a blood test and a chest x-ray. The urine sample and the blood test came back fine. The chest x-ray showed some changes on her lungs, which again suggested that she had another mild case of aspiration pneumonia. Excuse that noise in the background if you can hear it, by the way. That's just the tumble dryer. I really need to sort that out. But anyway, so yeah, aspiration pneumonia again, another chest infection, which is the second one she's had in a few months. The last time she had one, it was following a UTI. And then in between those, she also had Haemophilus influenza, which was picked up from a nasal secretion test. They sent it off to check the bacteria in her secretions. Avery did also have one of these tests on Friday, but we're still waiting for the results from that. I should get them today, but I imagine they're going to line up with the chest x-ray, and there probably is some kind of bacteria there. But we came home from the hospital. We were there for 8 hours, and we did come home with a course of antibiotics to try and treat the aspiration pneumonia. So all of that is kind of under control. Avery is still vomiting, which is why she is on diluted apple juice. Essentially it kind of works like Dioralyte to keep her hydrated. Because she's not keeping her food down, we've had to really cut back how much food we're giving her. And I'm just trying to make up her electrolytes and her hydration through giving her a small, slow amount of diluted apple juice. So she's been plugged in most of the day. She was plugged in pretty much most of yesterday just to make sure she is getting some hydration. I'm gutted it's happened again, because it's now suggesting to me that every time Avery gets a mild illness like a common cold or a UTI, she's going to end up with aspiration pneumonia. And I'm guessing what is causing it is because she vomits when she is poorly, and then with the added mucus on top, she's struggling to cope with that, and then it's going back down to her lungs, because she does struggle when she vomits. It sounds as though she's choking. It takes her a while to catch her breath. But like I said, vomiting is something that she does every time she's poorly. That's not a new thing. She's been doing that for as long as I can remember, but it's only in the last few months that we've started to pick up that she's been getting aspiration pneumonia. I wouldn't have thought it had been happening longer than that, because she's not always on antibiotics when she's poorly, and she normally gets better. So me and my husband sat down, had a really long chat as to why we think it's happening, why it's happening now all of a sudden. And I could only link the timings to when we started to transition Avery onto a blended diet. So I'm thinking in my mind, is it possible that Avery is struggling when she's being sick with the blends? Is it because she's vomiting blends and the consistency of that is making her struggle more than when she was sick with the complete pediatric? That is a possibility in my mind, but I have also spoken to her dietitian this morning, and she's going to give me a ring this afternoon, and I just want to bounce those theories off of her as well, because that could potentially be an option at the moment, is to go back to the complete pediatric and see if it will help at all. Another option that me and my husband are talking about is a J-tube, and if you're not familiar with feeding tubes, then the G-tube feeds Avery directly into her stomach. A J-tube would feed her into the jejunum, which is the first part of the small intestine. So the food doesn't go into the stomach, which means there would be no food in her stomach for her to vomit, which could essentially eliminate that problem. But the issue with the J-tube is it doesn't have the same capacity as the stomach, so it would need to be a continuous feed. I know there are ways to get around, you know, having her plugged in all day. We could do overnight feeds, which means she wouldn't be attached to the tube all day, because that isn't something that we would like, because it would hinder her therapies and us playing with her. But it could also essentially help with the reflux as well. But again, with J-tube feeds, our dietitians told us that ideally blends aren't good for a J-tube feed. So with either one of those options, the blends go bye-bye. And you guys have been with me since the start of the journey, getting Avery onto a blended diet. I was so excited about it. I was excited to see what benefits she would get from it. It was a nice feeling knowing that she was having meals, she was having real food. I knew what was going into her. And now we just might have to stop. And I think that's sadder for me more than it is for Avery, because I mean, Avery I don't think will understand the difference in terms of her emotions. At the end of the day, even if it makes me sad, if something is affecting her health, then I need to change it. Another option that has been mentioned to us a few times in the past is a fundoplication, which is an operation that is done on one of the sphincters. It's basically tightened, which means it's less likely for vomit to come above it. But that is an irreversible operation, and it's something that we've really been trying to avoid, and I definitely don't think we're at the stage where we want to consider that yet. the J tube is reversible. We could easily go back to the G tube if we don't think that it's made any kind of difference. But whatever we choose to do, it's going to be sad, because the last few months I've worked so hard to get food into her that I thought was going to benefit her, and there are benefits. I mean, it was only a week or two ago that I filmed the video about why we chose to do a blended diet, and there are definitely benefits, and I didn't regret the decision at all. But now that it's affecting her health, or could potentially be affecting her health, it is an issue. And I think mine and my husband's biggest fear is that Avery goes into another respiratory arrest. If you are new to my channel, Avery has cerebral palsy, and the reason she has cerebral palsy is because she went into a cardiac arrest when she was 3 days old. And not that it can be confirmed, but it is probable that she went into a respiratory arrest first, and that is what caused the cardiac arrest. And if Avery is having febrile convulsions in the night, and if she's coughing and not managing her secretions, and her breathing is funny, and she's spiking fevers, and she's getting aspiration pneumonia, there is more of a risk that she's going to go into another respiratory arrest, and that absolutely terrifies me. And we can't keep allowing her to keep getting chest infections, and we can't wait around for tests to happen that we've been referred for. I mean, Avery has been referred for so many tests. We're still waiting for them. We can't wait for that. We need to do something now to try and help the situation, because I'm just really worried that this is going to turn into something serious. It's kind of the same with the febrile convulsions. I did my research, and 1 in 50 children that have febrile convulsions are more likely to get epilepsy, and that is in a neurotypical child. So with Avery, when she already has a brain injury, she is already at an increased risk of epilepsy when she's older, and now that she's having febrile convulsions, I don't know how much that increases her odds. And that thought is scary, because even though there are so many people that live well with epilepsy and are able to manage and control it, the thought of her having epilepsy and us having to manage seizures on top of everything else would be terrifying. It just kind of feels like we're not getting a break. Avery's not getting a break. Everything is kind of caving in. I just think we need to do something to try and change it. I just want to make sure all of her medical professionals kind of agree with our opinions and give us the go-ahead to test our theories before we just do it. So I'll definitely keep you guys in the loop as to what we do, but that is where my mindset is right now. Avery is coughing and spluttering every 2 minutes and giving me a little bit of a fright, so I think we're gonna just end up here for the rest of the afternoon, sat on the sofa with a blanket, nice cuddles. You can probably hear how congested she is. Just poorly, aren't we, eh? not having a good time. It's not all been doom and gloom the last few days, even though it might seem like it has been based off of what I've said. I mean, you would have seen the footage from the beginning of this video, and I'm so sorry I completely forgot to explain that. That was from Saturday. So the boys carved their pumpkin on Saturday and they had a really nice time doing it, and Avery sat in the kitchen and watched them, and you enjoyed that, didn't you, Puds? Hey? So yeah, it's not all been doom and gloom. It's just, I think the decisions that we need to make is just making me feel quite stressed. I've just finished getting a few things done around the house. I've made up Avery a couple of breakfast blends. I would normally do a full week's worth, but since we don't know what we're doing, I've just done 2 for now. I think in terms of talking to you guys, this is where I'm going to stop. Don't click off just yet though. I will be sure to include some footage from our adventures trick-or-treating this evening. I just imagine that by the time we get back, I'm just going to want to crawl straight into bed. So I probably won't film an outro, I'm not gonna lie, but if you are enjoying the video then please give it a thumbs up, and I hope you enjoy the rest of it.